Be recorded.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Doug Smith. It's 2:30 on a Tuesday, so it is time for our Monday through Thursday 2:30 podcast. This is the podcast where you will hear the science about what actually happened behind the with the opioid crisis. Uh, uh, by the way, please, any and everybody, please send a word of thank you to Alex. Alex has been uh, uh, persistent, diligent in this FDA submission. And we've gone through a number of rejections, reject, but we're yet to see a rejection on the latest submission. So he's learning. Alex is very, very smart. Um, that's crucial. That's a crucial step forward for us. If we can gain that skill set and have that skill set as an arrow in our quiver, and have that skill set as a notch on our belt, um, that gives us a lot of opportunities. Um, so we'll just cross our fingers and see what happens. Yes, I know that the uh, what we're showing today, the graphic we're showing today for our podcast, is the book cover and one that we've shown before. But I really like the book cover, so I wanted to show it again. I like it a lot, and I want to give everybody an update on the book, because once we have completed the submission, the upload to the FDA, there isn't a whole lot for us to do with the FDA. They didn't take that and internalize it. So our full focus goes back to the book. And we know the FDA is going to be coming back to us in 30 days. So the question is, can we complete everything that needs to be completed on the book in the next 30 days? And I think the answer to that is yes. The book is written. We just have to get through the editing process. We're currently editing chapter 5 out of 9. Um, so yes, I think we're in real good shape. I like where we are, um, and even as we move into the holiday seasons, if we can get the FDA submission, and truth be known, we'd like to do a couple, two or three FDA submissions, and then coincide that with the rollout of the book, and then coincide that with the filing of the first wave of mass tort lawsuits. Uh, that's how we're gonna get this opioid crisis turned around. That's how we're gonna save the people who need to be saved. Um, if there's another plan, let me know. We've tried everything. Okay, we've tried everything, and the cognitive bias is just too powerful. The pseudoscience is just too powerful. It's impossible to overcome what they believe, and they believe in something called, they believe in a fairy tale. That fairy tale is something called opioid addiction, opioid use disorder, and you can't change their mind about it. So we've got to move forward in a manner that doesn't involve changing their mind, because they're not going to change their mind. They've got the stake in the ground. They believe wholeheartedly in a fairy tale, despite all the science to the contrary. And we've shown them the science. Okay, we've shown them the science, and it's had no impact. They think we're fake. Okay, so that's what we got to get past. That's not an easy thing to get past, but we have no choice. We will get past it. Um, so I did want to make a comment on what we looked at yesterday, because it's earth shattering. Okay, in the book, and today we're doing an update on the book. Okay, in chapter 3, we lay out all the science for opioid withdrawal, what we call the signature disease. Okay, and we lay out all the science showing that it's a type of disease called a neurotoxicity, a dysfunction within the nervous system. Okay, that's what opioid withdrawal is. It's a dysfunction in the nervous system. It's not some ridiculous mental health thing. These people weren't craving to get high, and a major component of this dysfunction in the nervous system is a loss of control of the adrenal glands, which is something you don't want to lose control of. Okay, Mother Nature has put in fail-safe mechanisms to make sure that you did not lose control of your adrenal glands, and that you did not suffer adrenaline toxicity, because adrenaline toxicity will kill you. Okay, and our estimation is adrenaline toxicity has killed about 4 million people, add in the 1 million who've died from an opioid overdose, and now for this pharmaceutical genocide, you're up to 5 million. Okay, and we wanted to put that in perspective. People need that put into perspective. Okay, so let's compare that to war. Well, if you look at all the deaths from all the U.S. wars, Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, Iraq War, if you look at all the deaths from all the wars, it's 1.2 million. And we're talking about 5 million in the pharmaceutical genocide. Okay, so no, that's not the same scale. All right, let's look at COVID. Okay, COVID turned this country on its head. COVID was 1.2 million. Nope, sorry. We're talking about 5 million and climbing. We're on our way to 6 million. What about HIV/AIDS? Nope, about 700,000 deaths. Not even in the same ballpark. And again, we're over 5 million on our way to 6 million. So what has had 5 or 6 million deaths? And we named 3 yesterday. The African slave trade, the Native American genocide, in other words, the slaughter of the U.S. Indians, and the Jewish Holocaust, the Nazis killing the European Jews. Okay, the Jewish Holocaust is about 6 million. The African slave trade killed about 6 million, and the genocide of the U.S. Indians, genocide of the Native Americans, was about 5 million. So that's the company that we keep. Okay, that's the company that we keep. Is we're in the same league, we're in the same category as true genocides. Okay, the slaughter of the U.S. Indians was a true genocide. Okay, the slaughter of the European Jewish population was a true genocide. Okay, can't really say that the African slave trade was a genocide. It was just greed. But that's what these pharmaceutical companies have done to the United States, is something on par with, something that is on the same scale as. Okay, what the pharmaceutical companies have done, what the psychiatrists have done, is on the same scale as the slaughter of the European Jewish population, the slaughter of the Native American Indian population, the slaughter of the Afrikaners in the African slave trade. Okay, and that's our perspective. Now, what was driving this? Okay, what drove this? Well, what drove the African slave trade was greed. Okay, what drove the slaughter of the American Indians was greed. Okay, what drove the slaughter of the European Jewish population was hatred. Okay, so what you can say is that all 3 of those share strong, powerful, motivating forces: hatred and greed. Okay, what they also share in common is that they were all legal. The African slave trade was legal. Okay, the slaughter of the U.S. Indians was legal. The slaughter of the European Jewish population was legal. Hitler made it legal. Hitler took over the controls of law and made it legal. It wasn't illegal. Okay, in fact, it was ordered. Okay, so what's interesting is you look at the things shared, the characteristics shared by the 3 comparisons that we make and our pharmaceutical genocide. Well, what was it that drove the pharmaceutical genocide? It was greed. It was capitalism. Of course. Okay, and the main point to be made here is the role of law, the role of the regulation. Okay, and the reason that's the main point to be made here is because the U.S. citizens were well protected by a series of regulations. Okay, there were rules in place that made it impossible for an opioid crisis to happen. Okay, opioid crisis required an immense warehouse full of opioids, and there were rules to prevent that. There were regulations to prevent that. Okay, and so what part of what drove the opioid crisis is getting around those rules. What some writers have called regulatory entrepreneurship. That's the term, regulatory entrepreneurship. I just call it fraud. Okay, and it was and it was just pure fraud. There was a rule called the 80-20 rule that said 80% of all opioids imported into the U.S. have to come from one of the following three countries. And in that way, it greatly limited the amount of opioid that could be brought into the country. The 80-20 rule. It limited how much opioid could come into the country. But it was Johnson & Johnson that skirted the rules. Johnson & Johnson that got the DEA to go, all right, we'll give Thebaine, okay, your opioid that you're growing on the island of Tasmania off the shore of Australia. We'll give Thebaine an exemption to the 80-20 rule. You can import all the Thebaine you want. Now, there was no medical reason for this. There was no legal reason for that. There was no valid reason for it whatsoever. It was just driven by greed. And how Johnson & Johnson got the DEA to look the other way, well, we don't really know. And Lord knows DEA has not been forthcoming on. But that's what drove the opioid crisis. And it'll all be in the book. Anyway, I'm a little long today. Get me started on the book, and I'll talk your ear off. Alex, once again, thank you for everything that you've done. Everybody, we're going to hold here for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us. Don't forget to post this podcast on your social media, everybody else's social media. Let's get the word out there. Everybody have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.